Pascal Siakam and O.G. Anunoby were both named in some recent Raptors trade rumors. Fred VanVleet had some interesting comments regarding the Raptors' maturity level this season, and Stephen A. Smith had a wild take regarding the Toronto Raptors 2019 championship winning squad. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump to the first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is Anunoby and Siakam named in recent Raptors trade rumors. And this one is pretty wild. It's coming out from Heavy.com. Bleacher Report talked about it a couple days ago, but basically they said that I think everybody in the league knows that Toronto is going to be headed towards a breakup. A league executive told Stephen Bulpett of Heavy.com. Another league source said that they're going to get rid of some of their assets and go in another direction, and listed O.G. Anunoby, Pascal Siakam as potential candidates to be moved via trade. So we heard a report late last week essentially saying that significant changes are likely coming to the Toronto Raptors, and now we have a league executive coming out and saying that Siakam, OG are potential names to be thrown out there in deals, but emulating the common thought process of a lot of fans, insiders, reporters, that the Raptors are going to be making some serious moves. Now, when people said significant changes, we speculated in the recent video about, hey, could it just be Raptors free agents, as we have Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., and Jakob Poeltl, all those players that could potentially leave for nothing this offseason. So could it be those guys just leaving and then we retain our assets in Scotty, Pascal, and OG and build from there? Or could a major shakeup go down? But as we know, right, we can't really get anything back for unrestricted free agents unless we do a weird sign-and trade the same way we trade away Kyle Lowry, but those are rare instances where that's the case. I don't imagine Gary or Poeltl would go for something like that, maybe Fred VanVleet, but we'll see what ends up happening if those guys do end up leaving. But if the Raptors really do want to shake up their roster, if there's going to be fireworks coming this summer, then it's likely going to have to come through trades, right? And the Raptors are in a weird position as we trade away our draft pick for next season. So we're not really in a status where we can tank because we still have Scotty Barnes. We still have promising players, a lot of talent on this roster. So if we were to go in that negative direction, we'd really have to completely tear up, blow up, nuke this entire roster in order to guarantee ourselves a top pick next season, because if we're in that 7 through 10 range, that pick is going straight to San Antonio rather than being able to stay in Toronto. So if we do, let our free agents walk, trade away Pascal or some of these guys, right, we're still at that risk without that draft pick. So I would be really surprised if both OG, Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam do get dealt this summer. I would be surprised, especially if we don't, if we give up Jakob Poeltl just solely off the optics of trading away a future first for a guy that was here for 2 months and we couldn't even make the playoffs with him. So I'd imagine, as of right now, there's going to be a lot of rumors, a lot of noise, a lot of stuff happening over the next couple of months. But where I'm sitting, given the recent reports, I think there are going to be some serious shakeups. But I think at least one of OG, Pascal are going to be staying on this team. I think Jakob Poeltl will be back. There's no way we trade Scotty Barnes. And then depending on what's out there on the free agent market, depending on what we can bring back, I think one of Gary Trent Jr. and Fred will stay. But it's going to be interesting to see what ends up going down. So we'll keep you plugged into any rumors or reports that come out in recent weeks. But next thing we're taking a look at is Fred VanVleet inferring that the Raptors team this season was immature. Now, Fred obviously is a veteran in this league. He's been with the Raptors organization for a long time, and he's a leader on this squad. And last couple seasons, Fred, especially with Kyle Lowry gone, him, Pascal, two of those guys have really been asked to lead this squad, become the players with championship pedigree, guide this team, mentor this squad to hopefully playoff contention. Unfortunately, it couldn't happen this season, but Fred had some interesting comments regarding this team's maturity, basically saying that I think at a certain point you can't make anybody grow up. It's going to happen at their own pace, at their own speed. Fred VanVleet on the Raptors' maturity level coming from Bleacher Report. So, interesting stuff there. Obviously, Doug Smith is one of the big reporters pushing the narratives that Scotty Barnes didn't work that hard on his game last season, came in a little bit unfocused this year in his year 2 of his NBA career after a Rookie of the Year campaign. And sure, some people are running with that. I don't know if I'm going to run with that narrative at all, but Fred VanVleet talking about young players, right? Whether it's Scotty Barnes, sure, we can leave that discussion to what it is. I think there's going to be a lot of talk regarding Scotty Barnes' development this season going into next. But you look at some of the younger guys, right? Maybe a Flynn who hasn't shown that consistent ability to take over his opportunities, right, to really earn himself a spot in the rotation. Maybe a Delano Banton, maybe just some of those guys, some of those younger players that haven't been able to be consistent out there on the court. We don't know what's happening inside the locker room, the practices, what they're saying to coaches about the inconsistent minutes. But Fred, say what you want about him. He is a vet. He's won a championship. He's been an all-star. He has the resume of a player that deserves respect, and it's probably asking for that in the locker room. And even though we have a lot of younger guys on this team, just some interesting comments to take away given our whole situation. Fred VanVleet was very high on Nick Nurse, right? Didn't have a bad word to say about him. Expects him to be back next season, their post-game pressers, or postseason pressers, but maybe he's throwing the blame more so on the younger players than the actual coach. And he probably would do that, given Fred got a lot of minutes and all that sort of stuff. But let me know what you guys think about Fred VanVleet's comments on the maturity level of the Toronto Raptors. Next thing we're taking a look at is a wild Stephen A. Smith take on the Raptors 2019 championship winning squad. Now, everybody knows that's been watching the podcast for, we've been doing this for 5 years now. Big DeMar DeRozan guy, love him, right? His picture is, let me move. You can see his jersey up there to the left. DeMar jersey, picture of DeMar finishing a layup. That's why I got in the studio. Will always be a legend in my heart. But Stephen A. Smith, even though this man probably had one or two nice things to say about DeMar DeRozan his entire Toronto Raptors tenure, where he's mostly just bashing him, Skip Bayless out there about the trash bros and all of that, Kyle Lowry, DeMar choking in the playoffs, even though a lot of that was dramatized and whatever you want to say about there, even though we did run into a roadblock with LeBronto. I digress. Stephen A. Smith came sort of out of the blue and talked about DeMar DeRozan in this championship season, basically saying that DeMar DeRozan, I believe, would have pulled off the same thing Kawhi Leonard did if LeBron James wasn't in the Eastern Conference that year. And while my heart loves to think this, while I definitely am a bigger fan of DeMar DeRozan than Kawhi Leonard, just as basketball players, just representing Toronto as a fun guy to root for, right? Sure, Kawhi Leonard, definitely in the moment. That was some of the best moments of basketball. He's blessed upon Raptors fans. He blessed upon me. All that sort of stuff. Always love, respect Kawhi. DeMar DeRozan really embraced the city. We grew up with DeMar DeRozan. I love that man. As much as I'd love to believe this, as much as I'd love to speak this into existence, this is a pretty wild take. Kawhi Leonard, for all, he's not much of a leader. He didn't rep Toronto. He was a guy in the locker room that was a little bit distant and all that. That man could hoop. And a healthy Kawhi Leonard, which he was with the Toronto Raptors throughout that season, even though we did load manage the heck out of the guy. Healthy Kawhi is a top 3 player in the NBA. We're seeing it this year going in his head-to-head matchup against the Phoenix Suns right now. Took game 1 of that series. Yes, DeMar DeRozan's an elite mid-range shooter. Kawhi Leonard has that. But he's also much stronger. He can get to the rim and finish over people. He finishes around people. And DeMar's a solid finisher. On the offensive end, right, they're both comparable, but Kawhi's just bigger and stronger, so he can create a few more shots. But Kawhi is also knocking down 3-pointers, and that's a huge, especially come playoff time, facet of your game. So players, they can scheme, right? For DeMar DeRozan, they probably know he's not going to be taking up those 3-point shots. He's more so going to be looking to get his ISOs and get his shots in the mid-range area, right? Kawhi Leonard didn't have that limitation. Kawhi Leonard is also a world-renowned defender when he feels like it, and DeMar DeRozan, right, for as much as I love him, was pretty garbage in the playoffs. He would be getting picked apart. He's gotten better, actually, in San Antonio and with the Bulls we've seen recently, but still not regarded as the top-level defender, but he get picked at a little bit. Ty Lue and those Cleveland Cavalier teams, they'd be running sets to directly pick apart DeMar DeRozan on defense. Kawhi Leonard wasn't just not a liability on that end, but was just a phenom. People would avoid Kawhi Leonard, right, him picking them apart on defense. And I don't know, just the mentality, right? The comments DeMar DeRozan made following LeBron series just sort of indicated, hey, he wasn't believing himself the same way sort of Kawhi Leonard did. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, that season was looking like an upper echelon player. Obviously, he became better, won a championship 2 seasons after, but I don't know if we're getting through the Bucks. I'm not sure we're getting through the Sixers without Kawhi Leonard. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. As much as I'd love to think it, right, Kawhi Leonard was that man, and I would love for him to be back on the Toronto Raptors. That dude is an absolute phenom. But next thing we're taking a look at is Siakam named the second most overrated player in the NBA. So 58 players did a little poll, and they named who they believed, amongst their peers was the most overrated guys in the NBA. And interestingly enough, Pascal Siakam, while Trae Young was other, scattered names across, took up most of the percentages, but Trae Young took a lot of huge vote there, right? 14% of the 58. But Pascal Siakam tied for second as second most overrated player in the NBA, tied with Julius Randle, which I think this season is pretty wild, given the fact that he's been carrying the Knicks. Jimmy Butler, Rudy Gobert, Jaren Jackson Jr., RJ Barrett, Dylan Brooks, right? Lots of guys, lots of players on this list are good. Like Jimmy Butler there is an interesting name to have on this list, but I don't know. I'm not buying. I think Siakam just gets a lot of disrespect. Probably some Sixers players out there voting for Pascal Siakam, but it is something to think about if the players don't have respect for someone's game, even though Pascal's putting up some ridiculous stats this season. But the final thing we're taking a look at is O.G. Anunoby, named third? No, he was seventh. He didn't win Defensive Player of the Year. Jaren Jackson Jr. ended up getting that selection. Third is not the number on here. It's tied for seventh with Drew Holiday. Third team. I don't even know. I'm getting rid of that chapter thing that popped up. But O.G. Anunoby did not win Defensive Player of the Year. He tied with Drew Holiday for that seventh slot. So fortunate stuff, but the Toronto Raptors defense not being up to par. That's the reason why he didn't get that selection. Hopefully, he will be all defensive team this season. But folks, let me know what you guys think of all this stuff down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And definitely, you guys are looking for cars. Check out Queensway Automotive Group. They got dealerships all across Ontario, new, used, whatever cars you're looking for. They got you the best deal. So shout out to Queensway Automotive for supporting a lot of Toronto Raptors podcasts out here as of late. But you guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.